And we are live with Cups Analytics, the newest tout on the scene. The guy knows ball. He's a dynasty bro. He is in these streets talking analytics, and he is touting his pants off. Let's go. What is up, everyone? Alex, how's it going, man? What is up with you on this fine Monday night? I'm interested to hear kind of your background in fantasy in general. I know you obviously you've come onto the scene recently with your So You Think You Can Tout video, but give us a little bit of background on Cups Analytics.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Bindles. I've been seeing you around in the streets for a while now. I know I just started making content like last year, but just came onto the scene with the So You Think You Can Tout, like you said. But I have seen you around for a long time. Great to finally put a face to a name on Twitter. And yeah, thanks again for having me on. So a little background about me. My name is Alex Cups. I studied data science in school back in college. And I finished my master's program actually in data science last summer 2025. And it was a 2-year program. And I decided, why don't we just do our thesis project on something that we think is interesting? We got stuff going on at work that, pays the bills, but it might not be the most interesting stuff on a day-to-day basis. So I was like, you know what, let's use this degree, at least write the thesis on something for fun. So that's what I did. And I created a machine learning model on basically how can we predict fantasy success at the NFL level based on what you did in college, all of your, counting stats, all of your advanced metrics, size and athleticism, and draft capital, and basically taking all those features and, intertwining them and figuring out the best way to use them all to maximize correlation with NFL fantasy success. So that's kind of what I've been doing over the past few years. And it's a lot of work. Definitely was not easy, especially just kind of doing it free ball before like Claude Code came onto the scene. Definitely wish I learned a lot, but I definitely wish now it's like, I could have done this in, a month or two if it was now. But definitely learned a lot of lessons along the way. And I feel like I understand it a lot better than I think I would if not. So it's been super fun and excited to start touting and get to know some of the guys in the streets a little better. So yeah, thanks again for having me on, man.
Yeah, no, this is a great time, right before like hot best ball summer gets started with BBM season. And I think, obviously like the data background, it's super apparent. You can break stuff down. That's a super, valuable skill to have, obviously from like a business standpoint, but also from a fantasy football standpoint, and being able to kind of connect. I kind of see sometimes there's people where it's like, you're more vibes based, you're more a ball knower, you're more like a data nerd type person. And I think like being able to blend those two together is where the magic really happens.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely like can tell, like you kind of like, you can speak very well. You have that side of things, but also the data background, which is, that's amazing. And it's hilarious. You talk about kind of, the data science background. I just started a new job a couple weeks ago. And I'm working very closely with a lot of kind of like strategy and insights teams. And today I literally had a meeting where they're talking about kind of using like models and kind of like exactly what you're doing, but like from a business sense. And I'm like, I actually really understand this, not from like a business sense, but from like fantasy football. And so I do understand it, like of what you're doing. Do I understand on the business side of it? Not necessarily, but at least I have a good starting point. So
for sure. And yeah, I think like you said, like balancing the vibes and the data is such an important thing. Like it's hard, having such a data focused brain to like kind of be able to force myself to put it aside sometimes and really take into account, because there are so many things that like my model, for example, doesn't account for. Like it's not accounting for the situation that a player is drafted into, right? So these rookies, they get drafted, and the only thing that's getting taken away into the model numerically is their draft capital. But whether that draft capital was 8th overall to the Saints or 9th overall to the Chiefs, those might be drastically different outlooks from a fantasy football perspective in terms of what we could expect from these players once they hit the NFL. So those are things like that. And, like offensive schemes, who's the entrenched starter? Say there's a running back drafted to a team that has, Derrick Henry as the starter. It's going to be a lot different than if they go to, a wide open backfield. So stuff like that, you really need to have some nuance in addition to the data, because we can think these players are good prospects, but when it comes to actually what they can do in the NFL, there's so many more layers to it. And really being able to figure out, what we can expect by taking the data into account, but also, like you said, like some vibes-based, nuance-based analysis as well.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy at this point in time. Just like I even remember, I fell in love with Underdog 4 or 5 years ago now, and just the amount of data that's out there, and it's almost like there's too much stuff out there right now where you kind of have to, who are you listening to? Who do you trust in terms of the numbers? Because obviously, numbers, you can manipulate them a certain bit to kind of tell the story you want to tell. So definitely it's like you have to have very a good ability to actually figure out who to listen to and who to trust on that aspect. And I think there are some, big names in the space where you're like, okay, like I can trust that, like, you are not just trying to paint a certain narrative because you like this player. Obviously it's hard, but in terms of I want to talk some year 2 guys, because I know over on your channel, I put the link down below. Link is in the chat. Go everyone subscribe to his channel. He's putting out shorter videos on these year 2 profiles, and it really gives you kind of a good analytical based approach of like how are we looking on these guys into year 2. But from an overall dynasty lens, you said, not as much best ball drafts for you, more on the dynasty side of things. Kind of walk us through, before we dive into the specific year 2 players, kind of your dynasty process from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my dynasty process has definitely evolved over the years. I've been playing dynasty since 2020. So like 6 years at this point. And, starting in 2020, I'd actually only played fantasy football in general in 2020 for a year. So I got into dynasty a year after starting playing fantasy football, and immediately, saw those picks and like, damn, what are these picks? What are these even worth? Like, we're going to ship off 3 firsts for George Kittle. We're going to get rid of all these seconds for some, Brandon Cooks or, some wide receivers from back in the day. Will Fuller, perhaps. And talk about a guy. But yeah, so basically I think, going from kind of just learning how to play the game in the first place to getting really into the data. And, there's been, like you said, there's some really, really good data focused minds in this space. And some of them were like the main inspiration for me. I don't know if anyone here would remember DF Bean Counter, Drew. He was a massive like data guy in the fantasy space from like 2020. I mean, when I started till like 2023, 2024, and then he disappeared without a trace. He never came back, but he was like a guy that definitely got me into it. And yeah, so like getting really into the data, but then also one thing that I've been really trying to focus on recently is looking at ADP in best ball and trying to find discrepancies with redraft in best ball, ADPs over on Underdog, and then comparing that to Dynasty ADP and trying to figure out who are these best targets in terms of value by looking at like where are the biggest deltas between best ball ADP, for running backs that might be older that are a lot cheaper in Dynasty, but they're going in the second round of best ball. Guys like that are the ones I'm really trying to figure out, how do we quantify how valuable specifically like these veterans are, because veterans are such a hot topic in Dynasty. You know, in the offseason, you want your team to look like sexy. It's got everyone under like 25 years old. You got picks in the bank. But, you know, at the end of the day, like when we get to September, you're going to want to have some of those guys that are projected to actually score points in your lineup. So really trying to figure out over the offseason, like how can we quantify these veterans and figure out which ones are the best targets based on their price. So that's kind of like my next big endeavor. I think this offseason is probably to try to come up with like some sort of algorithm that can take in best ball ADP and figure out those deltas and try to quantify it a little better.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I think it's funny you talk about DF Bean Counter because I don't know if he was like the reason I got into Dynasty, but he certainly was one of the first people on Twitter. He was huge back in the day.
Yeah.
So I was in, you know, the Discord, the Bulletproof Discord, and it was Jacob Sanderson, Paul Patterson. I don't know if you know DSP 4150 D Plot. Yep. He's one of my friends. I actually met him in real life in New York. Last summer that I've literally talked to that guy for like 4 years on Twitter and other places. But yeah, I think obviously like, a lot of good, you know, people that really know their shit and from a foundational standpoint and really just get you thinking deeper than, okay, I'm playing Dynasty. I want the young players. Like that's the only thing you're really considering. And it's funny you talk about kind of the veterans being kind of the key to Dynasty, because it's like you can accrue value with picks. You can kind of play this game where you're kind of perpetually rebuilding from a value standpoint. But at the end of the day, like value only gets you so far. You still need to have points in your lineup. So kind of figuring out that way to optimize between those two is super, super key. And I kind of, I'm not as data focused as you in terms of knowing how to do this stuff. I will say Claude Code is very, very helpful in terms of just building out stuff that I would not have the technical skills to do previously. But I kind of have done similar stuff where like looking at like value over replacement versus like a dynasty calc value or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Just being able to like visually, you can kind of see like, okay, well, where are these biggest differences in terms of guys where you can really stand out? Like I know last year, like Devontae Adams was like in startups going in like the 10th round consistently. And obviously a huge payoff if you're getting him. Like the guys that are being drafted in that range are just like giving you very, very, very replacement level production. Obviously his value is not going to shoot up from like a younger player's perspective, but I think that is definitely, once you reach that point, that's a very, very smart place to be for sure. So
yeah, for sure. It's been interesting to see so far. And I think, like you said, like Devontae, 10th round startup last year. I mean, he's going around. It's you're either taking Devontae or you're taking a shot on like, you know, one of those year 2, year 3 wide receivers that have done pretty much nothing. And I think that kind of is a side tangent to go into another point of those are the type of players that I'm never going to take shots on. I know if you said you were in the Bulletproof Discord, you'll remember face planners and like the logic behind face planning prospects. And those are the ones that a face planner, for those of you that weren't around in the DFB encounter time or the Bulletproof time, was a prospect that I believe lost at least 2 rounds of redraft or startup ADP from their rookie year to their sophomore year. So it was some amount of quantified ADP loss between their first year to their second year. And the hit rate or the comeback rate of those players to actually gain value after being face planners was super low. So it was like these players, once they've gone down and the community as a whole kind of gives up on them, it's kind of like the law of averages with a big population. Like if the population as a whole has given up on this player, they're going to be right more often than they're going to be wrong. So when they lose that much value, or when they lose a couple of rounds of value, you would rarely see them come back. So you're seeing all the face planners end up around Devontae Adams in like that 10th round area. but they're 22 or 23, right? And it's like you have 6 teams in your league that are just looking at the age. And really I think, just kind of goes back to the point of prioritizing production. Even if you're drafting for a rebuild, like you can take these players because you'll be able to trade them mid-season. There's going to be someone in your league looking for production, and you don't have to lock yourself to only young players, regardless of your team's build out, because you're always going to be able to make moves to help a contender, make a push. And you'll get more value for it than just wasting a pick on one of these guys that's a face planner. So it's an interesting conversation. And there's just, there's so much to like startups, especially, that you could go on forever about like the process behind that.
Yeah, that's like, I told you I've had to cut down just because my life has gotten busier. I have more stuff going on, but still around like 50 leagues. And, I have been able to manage it pretty well up until this last year, where just life kind of got the best of me. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should slow down a little bit. But I really like what you said about like there's kind of different economies going on in any one league, right? Some teams are tanking, some teams are competing. Some teams have traded away their picks, some teams still have their picks. And there is like different forms of value. I know Jacob Sanderson, like I said, was part of the Bulletproof Discord that we were talking about, and obviously a huge name in the space now and what he's blossomed into at this point. But he kind of like talks about like base first value, evaluation of a player, like a first that can either that it's like same likelihood to either be the number 1 overall pick or the 12th overall pick, and just using that as kind of just like a concept. And at the same time that there's there's production value that is a form of value. It's not just like, hey, on KTC or Fantasy Calc or Dynasty Calc or whatever on these platforms, like both are valid. It just depends on what your specific goal is in that moment for your team. And I think being able to balance it's really hard, because you're like, I think from a normal, just like human brain standpoint, you're kind of just like, oh, I'm competing. Like, I don't care about, I only care about points. I only care about what production is going into my lineup this year. And I just trade all my picks. Like you said, like that's a super common thing that people do. Not to say it's necessarily wrong, like you can work around it, but really where that sweet spot is in Dynasty is being able to do both, like, right, maximizing the amount of points in your lineup while at the same time still being able to backfill with future rookie picks, younger players that still can increase in value down the road. And, you can just kind of constantly be playing that game where you're, if you do want to trade a guy because you feel like he's going to fall off, you don't necessarily need the production. You can trade him for a future pick and then just rebuy him later on the next year or when you do need to do so. So, Dynasty is a super fascinating game. And I think for very like analytical type people, it is, I love best ball. Like it's definitely something where it's like, there is a lot of game theory in that as well, but Dynasty is just like, you can always be tweaking, you can always be tinkering, you can always be making trades, you can always try to tinker and improve. And for hyper focusing, it's like, I think it's special in that area for sure. So
yeah. And I mean, like you mentioned, best ball too, though, there really is, I feel like there are people doing work in the data in best ball, but I really feel like it's a pretty untapped area right now in terms of truly figuring out like the optimal build. It's like there's people that have theories on which builds are optimal. And I know it feels like it changes every year, right? And it's funny that it changes every year because it's always just like, okay, what won last year? Was it a 3 quarterback build? Was it a 3 tight end build? When in reality, now we're starting to get a big enough sample of BBM years for somebody to come in and do something really cool, because we have, what is this, BBM 6 coming up now?
Yeah, I want to say 7. Yeah.
7? Yeah. So it's like there's 6 years of data for BBM and also for all these, smaller drafts. And I personally don't really know the best way to like get underdog historical data. But if it's there and somebody knows how to do it, there's so much cool stuff I feel like that you could do with best ball data to really figure out like optimal builds and player targets and ranges that you want to be taking these players. Because I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. So it'll be interesting to see what people come up with in the best ball space over the coming years.
Yeah, it's really hard to like balance, like you said, like we've had 2 years in a row where running backs, obviously it's half PPR, which does play into like, it was just so wide receiver heavy for a while that it probably swung just way too far to one side. But at the same time, part of me is just like, we've had very historically high rates of like wide receiver injuries. There's NFL trends going on in terms of kind of wide receiver scoring being down as a whole, and running backs, these older running backs that have just been extremely healthy as a whole versus the wide receiver position. Like, how much of that is just random luck? How much of it is these different, trends in the NFL? It's very hard in your brain. Like, it's just almost too much information to just we
100%.
can't do all those permutations in our head of like, okay, what was the outcome that actually happened versus like if we run these quote, these sims that people are doing like for legendary upside with the sidekick and everything, and kind of trying to do the best job of that. I agree. I think it's very untapped. It's hard. We've only had, like you said, 5-6 goes around, which in the grand scheme of things, it's more data than we've had, but it's still not like a huge data set that we can
definitely
train stuff on. So
yeah, 100%. So it'll be interesting. And I think you make some good points about how things have swung so running back heavy with wide receiver scoring down. And with the running backs, it's interesting too, because it just makes you think like, is this simply because the running backs that are older that refuse to slow down are some of the best running backs of all time? Like, it's literally just like the 2017 class. And like these guys that just continue to dominate, like your Christian McCaffreys or Saquon Barkley's. And it's just, I wonder, once these guys officially do hit the age cliff, whatever that is, because we always think we can predict it and they keep going year after year after year. But once they finally do hit that age cliff, I wonder how that's going to change the market, because I do feel like we are getting new running back talent into the league with some of these younger guys. These guys are CMC, Saquon are 30, 31, right? At this point. So it's tough to see. Like, I think it's going to change the landscape a lot once these guys finally fall off, because I think it's going to be a lot of talent falling off and not quite as much direct one-to-one filling it back in. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. And I think so much of like the best ball community is you just don't want to look stupid on Twitter. You don't want to look stupid, right? Like, oh, what were your results last year? Like, and these are small sample sizes. Like you could theoretically like have a good strategy, right? But you just can completely tank out in a single year or even 2 years. Yeah. So I think that is like just having the mindset of like, hey, if I think this is the best approach for this particular draft season, I just feel like all the fish are swimming downstream this way. I want to stream against the grain because I think that's where the edge is. I think that is the sharpest thing you can possibly do. Like, obviously the market is smart as a whole and we want to take that into account, but being able to push back where you truly feel like, hey, this has gone too far, and whatever that means, I think is probably the single most important skill you can have in terms of like best ball drafting. So it does. What does that necessarily mean? I think you can, like I said, we're bringing it back to what we were talking about before, like the vibes based, right? Like kind of knowing the market from like just being in these streets, watching content, drafting teams, all of that. And then having data to back it up is the perfect mix of those two. But in terms of year 2 guys, we were talking running backs. I put some guys in the thumbnail: Colston Loveland, Cam Scatabo, 2 guys that you've made videos on that are you're super high on. I know Ashton Genty was a guy that your model looked at very favorably going into year 2. Why don't you talk about starting with Genty, but any guys where you just feel like, hey, like the market isn't necessarily looking at these guys in the same way that my model is, in kind of just if there's any huge differences versus your model and kind of whether it's best ball market, dynasty market, anything like that. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So I think in terms of big differences, we can start with Genty. I don't think he's a big difference in terms of how the dynasty landscape specifically is treating him. He's consensus probably like RB3 right now behind Gibbs and Bijan. I think that makes total sense. My model did have Ashton Genty as the highest ranked running back since 2014 coming out of college. So he was ahead of Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs, all those guys. Genty did clear slightly. And that was honestly just because his raw production and advanced metrics for that matter, but basically the production itself was just so dominant. And yeah, people will say that it was at Boise, obviously playing a less hard schedule, and their team itself wasn't super impactful. But my model does account for strength of schedule as well. So for someone like Genty that that plays for a team that has like a low strength of schedule rating and SRS, which is simple rating system, which aims to basically measure the strength of schedule of each of your opponents and then crunches that up into a number. So basically it says how good are the teams that you're playing, not only your strength of schedule, but their strength of schedules. Genty's production obviously got docked quite a bit for being at Boise, and he still came out as the highest running back in my model. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, half of my thesis was pretty much coming up with a machine learning model that predicted like numerically your top 3 average fantasy points per game over your best 3 seasons in the NFL. And Genty's came in at like 23.9. So truly like transcendent level production, not quite CMC, a guy who's like, 26 or 27 over his best 3 seasons, but 23.9, that's above guys like Jonathan Taylor and, Bijan, Gibbs haven't come close to that yet in their career. So I really do see Genty as a guy that he's as close to a can't miss prospect as you could possibly get. And I think all things considered, last year he averaged something like 14.8 fantasy points per game, and with the worst offensive line in the league and, the most inept offensive line coaching, it sounds like. So I'm really not worried about Genty at all, but I do think he is being valued pretty much appropriately for what he's done so far and his potential. So I think like RB3 in Dynasty and coming off the board, I think like back in the first right now in best ball, right? Like he's probably a 1-2 turn pick. I think that makes sense as well. But I do see him as a pretty heavy target for me. If I do some best ball this summer, I'll be targeting Genty for sure at the 1-2 turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard like at the top end. Like I said, the market is pretty smart overall, but it is like one of those things where like, hey, Genty, he could be up there in that 101 conversation next year. Like you said, the situation was just so bad. This is the type of talent he is. Like that's going to make him a huge target at the back end of the first round if that's where he's going, right? Versus some of these other guys. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, hey, there's a 10 pick ADP difference, or you know what I mean? Like once you get further down in, the rounds, there'll be more of a difference.
For sure.
But at the very top, it's like hard to really differentiate, right? Like that much versus the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of another guy on the thumbnail, Cam Scatabo. Obviously, there's, are they going to take Jeremiah Love? New coaching staff, the injury, that kind of stuff. But how does your model kind of see him going into year 2? Obviously, didn't get a full year out of him, but just overall, what are your thoughts on him in Dynasty? Is he a target for you? Obviously, it's a little bit of a gamble, but would love your thoughts on that.
For sure. Yeah. Cam Scatabo is probably one of my favorite targets in all of Dynasty right now. And for that matter, best ball. Like I think the Jeremiah Love stuff is priced in at this point. And I also think that there's just so little to that story. And it's one of those stories that people just run with in the offseason because there was one headline about the coach saying that Jeremiah Love is an offensive weapon, not a running back. And it's like, if you follow Coach Speak Index on Twitter, he talks about, kind of context behind these coach phrases that they're coming out with in press conferences. And that question that the head coach, or maybe it was the OC for the Giants, answered about Jeremiah Love, it was so prompted. It was, do you view Jeremiah Love as a running back or an offensive weapon? And he said, he's an offensive weapon. And obviously he is, right? He's a very good running back prospect. But in no way was it like the Giants are targeting Jeremiah Love with their first pick, you know? And people have taken it that way and just run with it. And it's really driven down Scadaboo's price. And this takes me to my model's vision of Scadaboo after his rookie season. I think you could make an argument for him as high as RB2 in the class, like up there with Omarion Hampton. I think Scadaboo's rookie season was more impressive than Omarion Hampton's. I think it was by far more impressive than Travion Henderson's. And, you know, Quinshon Judkins had some awesome flashes as well, but he doesn't have the pass catching upside that Scadaboo has. Scadaboo ranked out in the class as the second best pass catcher of all the running backs in 2025. He looks like the type of guy that if he can stay healthy, obviously this is where all the stuff that's not in the data comes into play, right? Can he stay healthy? Do the Giants not draft Jeremiah Love? You know, basically that's pretty much it. The health and the Jeremiah Love thing. But if those things go his way, I mean, I don't see how he isn't a top 3 back in this class. And I think there's a serious chance we look back in like 5 years and he's had a better career than Omarion Hampton. I wouldn't say it about Ashton Genty because I think Genty is the truth.
He's a different level.
He's different. Yeah. But yeah, that's Scadaboo he feels like a generational value to me. I really don't see the Giants taking Love on Thursday night. If they do, I'll eat my words and everything's out the window, right? Because Jeremiah Love is a great prospect. And I think they'll honestly cannibalize each other. Like, I don't think Jeremiah Love will be able to take that backfield over from Scadaboo. I think they'll be kind of a 50-50 split and be super annoying. But I don't see it happening is at the end of the day. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's just weird because it's like we're baking it in for like whatever the Giants, the Cardinals. Now people are saying, hey, maybe them. The Commanders, like the Titans. It's like, well, he can't go to all these teams. Like, you're right. We have so much fear in best ball. I mean, in fantasy in general. And I think I was more out on Scadaboo just because of the injury and kind of the draft capital. But now kind of just thinking through it more and having more time to wrap my head around it, I do agree. Like, if they don't draft Love, I think he's set up so well. His profile, what we saw in his rookie year, a coach that we know is going to want to run the ball a ton, paired with a rushing quarterback, which we know boosts rushing efficiency as well. I think it's worth the price where it is now, where it's like 5th round in best ball. He's, you know, around some guys where it's like, okay, yeah, they're talented players, but do they have the value and production upside, like we're talking about, kind of the best of both worlds? I think he's in such a sweet spot right now that I'm coming back around on Cam Scadaboo for sure. So
absolutely, I'm right there with you. So yeah, prayers up that we don't hear Love called 6th overall come Thursday night. But if we avoid that, I think we're in good shape.
And then talking about year 2 tight end, I know you did some videos on all the guys: Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Harold Fannin, obviously the big 3. What do you kind of, in terms of those 3, like that's a pretty good 3 for a one singular class in terms of tight ends. How do you kind of view these tight ends? You know, what do you think is their actual ceiling? Obviously Loveland, it kind of has everything going for him, but the other 2 where how do you see them going into year 2, and also just like from a comparable standpoint of players they're similar to, kind of what we can see them be, you know, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line for those 3 guys?
Yeah, so the tight end stuff is really interesting because the sample size of fantasy relevant tight ends, my model goes back to 2014. So if you take, I think like the total sample size of the training and test data in the model is like 210 tight ends. So it's pretty small, with like the running backs and wide receivers are up around like 500, 600. So tight end is tough because these guys all go in the bucket. All 3 of them, Fannin, Warren, Loveland, they all go in the bucket of a tight end with a really good prospect profile that performed really well on a per route basis in their rookie season. And also their raw counting stats were really solid. So they all have very similar comps. There's not enough comps to go around at the tight end position that have that type of background, with the prospect profile and the rookie production. So they all three, if you watch the videos that I posted over the last week or so, they all comp to guys like, Evan Ingram, even like Kelsey and Kittle being later round draft picks sneak in there because they were both so effective in their rookie seasons from a numbers perspective. So when you look at these comps, and I should note, these comps are all driven by like statistically the most similar based on like 5 or 6 different metrics along with their prospect profile. So none of it is like my self picking people that I think are similar. It's all numbers based, right? And exactly. I think a lot of people get that wrong or get mad at me sometimes for not seeing players that they would want to see on these lists. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I'm not the one making these lists myself, right? It's all just numbers driven in terms of who is the closest to this player. But for all three of those guys, like you said, we get really, really solid, like top of the first round picks, like Brock Bowers, Evan Ingram, guys like that were, blue chip tight end prospects that went on to perform at a high level for years. TJ Hawkinson. And then we get some of the later round guys as well that sneak in there that had some effective fantasy seasons. So all three, super excited. Loveland, I think Loveland's my favorite. He was actually the 3rd highest ranked tight end in Cup score by prospect model score since 2014, only behind Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts. So solid top of the sample. He was an elite blue chip prospect coming in. And then Tyler Warren was actually 4th. So we had 2 of the top 5 historical tight end prospects coming out in 2025. And I think Harold Fannin, even being picked, I think 67th overall, was 8th. So they're all way up there just based on whether it be their production or their per route efficiency, like a guy like Colston Loveland that, didn't command the massive raw counting stats at Michigan, but he was so good on a per route basis that it boosted him up super high. All that to say, 2025 tight end class is just absolutely loaded. And you throw in Rondé Gadsden as well. You have 4 guys there that I think are going to just be dominating the position for the next decade. Like it's just such a solid class. It's crazy to think about how good they'll be in the future.
Yeah, I think Warren, I know in your video, and I have a similar sentiment, but just like, I feel like his rookie year is being a little bit undervalued just because of Loveland and Fannin to some extent as well. But it's like when you have all these rookies that did so well their rookie year, it kind of just, it makes every one of them a little bit less impressive. And I think Warren, especially with the Colts kind of having the Daniel Jones injury and just fading down the stretch, I think if that, obviously we can't, know what would have happened, but, he could have had even better numbers and just been right. Like the recency bias of having kind of some better games down the stretch definitely could have been, sticking in our minds a little bit more. So I think he is a really good click in best ball. He's going like, late 60s, early 70s range. And I think that's a pretty good opportunity. Fannin goes in a similar range. And then, not a year 2 player, but I think Tucker Kraft, obviously coming off an ACL, but I think the guys that can bounce back from those kind of injuries are super athletic, high RAS scores, just freak athletes, which Kraft is. And, younger players, he's still only 25 years old. So we kind of have an embarrassment of riches right now, which I feel like we say every year, at the tight end position.
Yeah, when you have guys like Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson in 2021, 2022, like we're set for the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, you never know.
But it's like, yeah, you have that group of guys we talked about, obviously the Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and then you still have in like Sam Laporta, a guy who, had a pretty impressive first couple of years, has dealt with some injuries. And then Kyle Pitts, the original unicorn. Still only 25 years old, gets Stefanski coming over from the Browns, who we just saw utilize Harold Fannin so effectively. So I don't know if I really have a point, but it's just like, hey, like these are very good profiles. They are guys you want to be taken in all formats and making the bet on, because they might just be scratching the surface in terms of what they can be down the road. And when you see that kind of production with the profiles coming out, it's definitely something you still want to be buying in on. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I think you make a good point about like Tyler Warren. I think he probably is my favorite click of the three big 2025 rookie tight ends at this point. I think Loveland, I mean, as much as I love him, he really is priced pretty high right now. Obviously, you get the great situation with the Bears. You get his baked in playoff performance where he just went absolutely nuclear. But with Tyler Warren, it's like we can't forget how effective he was at the beginning of the season, right? Like you mentioned, he finished slow, but he was the dynasty tight end too after like week 3 or week 4, right? After he was coming out of the gate super hot. We saw how well the Colts can utilize him and how effective he can be in the receiving game for them. And I think one thing that is extra exciting to me about Tyler Warren is the potential of him getting involved in goal line packages in the future. Just because we saw him do that in college, he's just an absolute unit and really offers like a different type of look that not a lot of teams can get. I mean, you think about like an Arthur Smith. If he was the coach of the Colts, he would be it would be a Super Bowl with a guy like Tyler Warren, bro. He would be losing it. So it's like, you see what he could do with a guy like Darnell Washington or, Jonnu Smith. I think we could potentially, if the Colts figure it out, like if they want to use Tyler Warren in some of those big body packages on the goal line, get him like 3 to 4 extra touchdowns a year, that would bump up his value immensely. So I think stuff like that really makes me excited about the potential of Tyler Warren. And I think he's a little older, obviously, as a prospect. So in Dynasty, I think there's a little bit more of a sour taste on him compared to a guy like Loveland or Fannin. But, tight ends play forever. The really good ones will play forever. So, a 2-3 year age difference, I'm not super worried about. And he's a guy that I'm definitely looking to target.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, obviously them moving on from Pittman opens up, some of those targets that are going to be fed towards a Tyler Warren, Josh Downs to some extent, but I still think Warren is just like from a talent perspective, he's going to be a focal point. And we see Alec Pierce, having some injury stuff going on. I think he's going to step up in year 2 and be pretty productive. And then you said you kind of add in the Taysom Hill-esque packages for him. It could be a pretty high ceiling. Let's say hi to the chat really quick, as I've completely ignored them. But shout out Go AZ Cards, Nice and Blunt, Omega King, Goofy Chicken, What the Cluck is up, brother? We got Emo Cowboy in here. We got our boy Chad Candles saying, hit the like. Yeah, if you guys haven't hit the like, go sub over to Alex's channel. The link is below. And yeah, I agree. I've been watching those videos, binging those on my work breaks the last couple days. So yeah, go give Cup his props. Well, I think we could talk Dynasty for hours and hours, definitely. But why don't we hop in a best ball draft here and get going?
All right. So I'm driving. Let me figure this out. So be my first draft on my account this year. So let's do it. Let's just draft the winner. Why not?
Hey, call our shot 1 for 1. That's all we need.
So what's the move here? Which one's got the better payout structure? Which one are we looking at? Talk to me.
That is a very good question. Let's do little board. Let's shoot for the 100K. I mean, I think if we're doing one shot, let's shoot for the moon here.
All right, I love it. Let's do it. Enter 20 seconds. All right.
Emo says, if you could implement one rule or tweak or idea in a dynasty league to improve or make it more difficult, what would you do? Do you have any immediate thoughts there? I'm gonna have to simmer on that one for a second.
Make more difficult. I think oh man, I don't know. One thing that I've really thought about, I've never done a what do you call the drafts like that people do for redraft where you have a salary, like you have a certain amount of money.
Oh,
Auction,
yeah,
like an auction draft,
auction
right?
draft. Yeah.
I think if we could somehow implement like an auction for the rookie draft but like obviously you want to incentivize the people with the lower team, the worst teams to maybe they have a bigger salary, or like you weight the salaries based on finish. But basically like giving everyone a chance, or I guess not everyone a chance at like the 101, because you don't want the guy that came in first to like have just enough money to like get the 101. But I don't know, some way of like changing the draft pick situation to an auction, I think would be pretty sick. And it would definitely make it more process behind it as well. So I don't know how feasible that is. And I think, Sleeper probably wouldn't like support something like that right now, but it would be pretty interesting to see how that would change like the theory behind Dynasty.
Yeah. Have you ever done like an auction, like draft
Never.
Dynasty League?
Nothing.
I've only done one. It was actually shout out to Steph Miller from Leg Up. I did one with her, and she kind of like wrote an article about it and was with a bunch of people from the Leg Up community. Did 1 year, but it's kind of what we were talking about. Like I went Bowers, it was tight end premium, went a bunch of like older receivers to just like fill my flex spots. And it was best ball dynasty as well. And yeah, it was super fun. I only did it for 1 year. I won the first year and then dipped, unfortunately, because I was trying, I was like I don't know, like trying to cut down on some leagues. But yeah, that was a fun one. So I think that's a good idea. I think for me would be playing around with just like different scoring settings. Like I usually play with 0.5 tight end premium leagues, but just kind of tweaking, right? Like maybe you could push wide receiver scoring up, you could push running back scoring up, quarterback scoring, mess around with those things and just try to find, I think it's a pretty good balance where it is right now, but you can think that would be like, if you're just trying to make it a little bit more interesting, switch around those things.
Have you been in the Scott Fish Bowl?
I have never. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just see those scoring settings every year. Just look absolutely nuts.
I spoke her name and she immediately appeared in the chat. But yeah, shout out to Steph. Have you done the Scott Fish Bowl before? I
haven't. No, I just see it every year, and I see like, I don't know, dudes like Travis Hunter last year were going in the first round for like the IDP. I don't know. There's just some wild kick return points, it seems interesting. I don't know what their scoring settings are, but it would be wild.
Yeah, I think for me it's like I play in so many leagues, I kind of need to standardize the scoring settings, otherwise it's just too much for me to wrap my head. Like, oh, is this league this setting? Is so, but I think if you're just like playing a few leagues, having some ones with different settings is more fun because you can kind of like have some different equations to play around with in your head. So
for sure. So yeah, what do you think here at 108? Like have you done a lot of drafts so far this year? What's your go-to?
So yeah, like I said, like I can't draft. I'm in Ontario, but
oh, right.
I'm in the streets, drafting with other people and constantly paying attention. I'm pretty, if JSN were to fall to us, I'd be fine with that. I'm pretty in on Amon-Ra this year. I think he's just so consistent. I think I'm Amon-Ra over Lamb and Jefferson. I'm also good to go Genty if you just want to call our shot on a generational running back there. I think either one is defensible.
All right, let's rip it.
Let's rip Genty.
Let's stand on business. We'll rip Genty. I did two drafts with PPR Tyler on Friday, and those were the actual first two that I've done. And I just realized so quickly how fast running back dries up. Like it really eats you up if you don't get a guy or two in the first 3 rounds. So I'm happy to get just a stud here and a guy that I think has potential to finish RB1 overall. And we'll snag some wide receivers, I'm sure, in the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, I think Amon-Ra is just like, he's so safe from a floor and ceiling perspective. But but I definitely think Genty just like I said, he could be the 101, 102 next year, where I feel like it's pretty hard to find an outcome where Amon-Ra is ever in that position. So I think it's perfectly defensible to take him here, to be completely honest.
Right on. Ooh, we got O'Marion Hampton at 112, pulling him up.
We looks like we gotta love Hampton double tap there on the turn. Looks like we'll have some running backs coming back around if we are interested in. Interesting to see. Is there anyone else in here with us? I don't think there's anyone that I recognize. If you are, remember, reveal yourself, or the SWAT team will be at your door in a moment's notice. So yeah, come on.
All right, what do we think here? Anything stick out to you?
I'm good with Kenneth Walker or Saquon. I like both of them.
All right, let's snag Saquon. Let's go double RB to start.
High T start.
That's right.
I'm pretty in on Saquon this year. I think the Eagles situation, there's a lot of stink around them. I don't think Saquon, like, from a just did he fall off standpoint, I think it was mostly just the offense. Obviously, the nature of his game, just breaking off long runs, is a little bit more variable. I still think he has a lot of juice. And I think if the offensive line is a little bit healthier overall, the offensive, offense is running a little bit better, and has a bounce back year, I think Saquon definitely could have a pretty big bounce back this year. He only scored, I think, in PPR, like 14.5 points per game, something like that. I think he could, jump back up pretty quickly here. So,
yeah, I think just looking at this board, like the first two rounds, and not having a ton of experience with the best ball so far this year, I think what seems to be, like, in my opinion, one of the early worst values on the board is definitely Devon Achane. If he's going here towards the 1-2 turn, that to me feels pretty egregious with everything we've seen transpire in Miami over the past couple months. I mean, you got Malik Willis, who is a rush first quarterback, not really going to be looking to check down the ball. Mike McDaniel, who I really feel like was the biggest reason Achane is who he is because you have that creative play calling. Granted, I do think Achane is a really talented runner, and he's shown that he can be a super talented two-way back in the league. But at the same time, I think there were so many things about that situation that really aided him and made him as much of a fantasy game breaker as he was. So I think with how bad that offense is looking and Malik Willis leading the way, it's going to be tough, I feel like, this year for Achane. And I don't see that 1-2 turn paying off.
Yeah, I think people are I completely agree with everything you said. It's just so hard. People are so scared of missing out on those, single game big weeks for him. I'm pretty good with T. Higgins. Honestly, Devonta Smith, I feel like, is a really good clip here.
Yeah, let's get Devonta Smith with the news about AJ Brown seeming to be more and more finalized every day.
Yeah, right. We got that news today that it's, they're telegraphing that it's definitely going to happen. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet, but yeah, we got a little Philly bet going on here. But yeah, no McDaniel for Achane. Clearly, they're just a tanking team. Okay, yeah, any of these top few round guys can kind of give you a 30-40 point week, and we've seen Achane do it before. But it's just how many touchdowns is he realistically scoring on that offense in that terrible of a situation? I think the receptions, he's still going to catch a lot of passes, but it's not going to be to the level that he was at the last few years. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. Shout out to Mac Nova gifting a Memby, and it looks like it went to Steph. Shout out Steph. Right as and that was hilarious that right as I'm talking about her. I don't know if I think she was probably just lurking in the chat, but how do you feel about Bucky this year? His price has gotten cheaper kind of in best ball and dynasty. Are you still in on him, or do you're a little bit worried with kind of them bringing in some other guys?
I'd say I'm definitely a little bit worried. I I think there's no doubt Bucky is a super talented back based on what we've seen out of him the first 2 years of his career. But just the way he's been, let's make this pick real quick.
I know you're the anti-Burden guy. No, I'm just kidding. You're not actually. Flowers, Burden, McConkey.
Let's go Zay. Let's get Zay. And
yeah,
do we open up a potential Lamar? Lamar's probably going to go, but we'll see.
He does fall back around sometimes.
Okay.
We have Hurts we could take in the 6 if he falls to us. So I think that's pretty fun either way. We can see what falls to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. Finish your.
Oh yeah. So Bucky. Yeah. I think if this is his price coming off the board in the 3rd, I'm probably good. I think that feels a little high for me. Especially just with the way they were using Sean Tucker and him being on the goal line and getting so much of the goal line work towards the end of last year. And Kenny Gainwell, as much as he is, he kind of is what he is at this point, I think it is probably a role that zaps Bucky of quite a bit of his upside. Because I think we're going to see Kenny on all the long down and distance snaps this year, where you get a lot of that PPR scam efficiency out of the backfield. So I think for Bucky, it's a little questionable. I'm not sure what that leaves him with in terms of a role this year. Is it just going to be kind of the between the 20s carries and a little bit of like early down receiving work, and the red zone work just goes to Sean Tucker? But I'm hoping to be wrong, because I do have quite a big bag of Bucky in Dynasty just from getting him in the late rounds of rookie drafts when he came out. But yeah, I think it's tough. The 3rd round price tag seems high for me, and I would like to see him fall to, more like maybe right before like Demont or around Travion here at the end of the 4th. Seems like it would be more palatable than into the 3rd.
Yeah, he does fall sometimes. He has been falling. I think this guy pulled him up here at the 312. He does sometimes fall past like the Javonte Kyren back into that later 4th round. So I agree. That's like seems a little bit more palatable. We have Quinchon at the top of the queue here. Scatterbro.
Yeah, for me, this would be Scatterbo.
Okay, let's go Scatterbo. Yeah, I'm down with that for sure.
Let's do it. Yeah, I think if it's just looking at this price tag for Scatterbo, if we get past Thursday, there's no way in hell he's a 5th round pick. Like, there's just no shot. If Jeremiah Love doesn't go to the Giants, I mean, I want Scatterbo over Javonte. I want Scatterbo over Kyren. I probably want Scatterbo over Bucky Irving. I'd probably draw the line between Brees and Scatterbo is like those would be kind of a toss up for me. But I mean, we get 4 days into the future and the backfield is still Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy. There's no shot we're seeing him in the 5th round. So I think that's probably one of the best clicks on the board right now.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, it's baked in. We have Ashton Genty, Saquon, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers is a super good click as well. I think I forget what his name is, but they're bringing in the offensive coordinator. He's from the Rams tree, obviously getting rid of Harbaugh. I think they could be, obviously they still have Derrick Henry, but I do think they could be a little bit pass heavier than they have been in the past. And it looks like they're not getting AJ Brown. I think obviously like it was people were projecting to the Patriots. So if that does happen, he's pretty safe. Even if they do draft someone, he's going to be the wide receiver 1. And we saw Zay Flowers before Lamar was hurt last year, really, 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 really popping off. I do think he has another level that he can get to as a player, still very young. All right. Do we want to just lock up Jalen Hurts here with our Devonta Smith stack?
I think that's probably the responsible play. I think we should just snag our Jalen. Tyler Warren screams to me here just with the value at tight end. I mean, let's see how far. Yeah, Loveland is at the 4.8, and you can get Tyler Warren at the 6.5. Like that to me feels like a massive gap that I'm not sure should be there. But I do agree, probably the responsible pick there. Let's get our stack. it could be the wide receiver one and Jalen Hurts. And the Jalen Hurts discourse recently is just, I mean, every offseason is just mind numbing, man. Like, people just need to get a grip over in Philadelphia. I don't know why there's so much hate on Jalen Hurts. Maybe, real life, we could argue. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to the QB efficiency IRL stuff, but fantasy, I know he's going to score us 20 plus points per game with the tush push. So why not lock that up in the 6th round?
Yeah, all these Eagles pieces, obviously we're taking them on this team, but I think they're all just priced down. We see this kind of, right? Like the Eagles, it seems like every other year, right? They have a really good year. They bring in a good offensive coordinator. They just get some health stuff to come together. They have a great year. They lose their offensive coordinator. They bring in some guy that obviously, like, it's just hard. If your coordinators are good, you're going to lose them. They try to backfill, and there's chaos that happens throughout the NFL season. It doesn't always go your way. And then they bring in another guy that they, feel like is maybe a better fit. It's like very cyclical year by year with them. And they're a super sharp organization. I think you do have to kind of just trust in their ownership and their GM to just like right the ship. And I definitely like, we're taking all the pieces other than AJ Brown. I think all of them could be whatever significantly undervalued coming into this year. So like the way that we've been playing this.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
And a surprise to no one is Chad Candles loves our Scatabo pick as the resident Scatabo bro. So
is Chad Candles a big Scatabo?
I think he had like 30% Scatabo through his draft. I don't know. Like,
let's go.
So we only have 2 wide receivers so far. I would be interested in Addison. We could also go Harold Fannin. I think
I'm probably Addison. I think here.
You want to go Addison? Yeah, I think that's a responsible pick as well. Just having only 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, and Addison to me feels pretty underpriced. With I don't know, with Kyler coming in, it's a little questionable. Can he support two solid fantasy wide receivers? And I'm a massive Kyler fan, so I hope the answer to that is yes. But Addison's always, I feel like, been kind of criminally undervalued. Especially, I think his antics off the field don't help the public's perception of who he is as a player. So I think he'll always be kind of one of those more talented wide receivers than they get credit for in fantasy.
No, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. Like, I don't think I get there's like tying to ADP and everything, but like him versus Marvin Harrison, him versus even a Christian Watson, like, Addison was out. Like, Addison scored 2 years ago. He was scoring 15 points per game in full PPR. We bring in just any quarterback other than JJ McCarthy. I think Kyler does pair super well with a Jordan Addison with the downfield shots that we like to see in that offense. And he's a little bit of a dumbass, but like a lot of these players are, anything can happen. So I love taking Addison in this range. I think he was a very, very good click in like pick 105 and when he was going before. Okay, we're back up on the clock here.
Gosh, yeah.
Anyone that's really standing out to you here?
I like the look of Tucker Kraft here.
Yeah, okay.
Who else do you see?
Yeah, you're not going to have to twist my arm to take Tucker Kraft. I feel like every single time on this side of the board, I'm just like, okay, do I want a wide receiver that is not, I don't really love, like a Jacoby Myers, Pearsall, like Dobbs, I don't even see on my screen, to be honest.
Yeah.
Or a guy who, if he didn't tear his ACL, obviously it's a projection of him coming back, but I kind of laid out the case of, 25 years old, elite athlete, just look at Tucker Kraft. He has that dog in him. He's going to be rehabbing harder than anyone, obviously it's not completely in his control, but, I just feel like if he didn't get injured, I don't know, is he going close to where a Loveland is going? Maybe like a 4 or 5 turn, something like that.
What was he, the tight end 1? And he was the tight end 1 in points per game through the first like five weeks of the year, right?
Yeah. Crazy. Obviously he's a dog to be a tight end 1 over a Bowers or a McBride for the full season. But we've seen him have 25, 30 point weeks, kind of above that. Like, okay, tight end can score 2 touchdowns in week 17 or in the playoffs, but he kind of gives you that a little bit of extra juice. And I think at this depressed cost, it's just like a shot I'm willing to take. It's best ball. You don't have to worry about, the 5-point weeks where he's only getting a few targets. And, no Romeo Dobbs. I'm not super into Matthew Golden. That's one video I did not watch of yours was the Matthew Golden video. So I'm interested to hear your take on him coming up here. But
you would like it not being into Matthew Golden. It's a short video. Let's just say that.
Okay. Yeah, it was. So my co-host on Ballsy, usually on Monday nights, he's a Texas alum. Loved Matthew Golden last year. I was all in on Jaden Reed. And I mean, we kind of both lost in that one, but right. I'm not sold on Golden. I think his production profile coming out was just like pretty bad.
It was terrible. Yeah, we can get into Golden after this pick, but what do you see here? I mean, we could establish a pretty solid backstack with Reed if we wanted to target Love a little bit. I guess he's right here.
It would be
like Kyler.
It's like, do we want the Kyler and Addison, or do we want Reed? And I kind of lean Kyler.
Yeah.
All right. No. Well,
how many more picks do we have to work again? 113. I mean, we could try to push
Love.
Yeah.
Let's go Reed and push it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're running a little low on receivers as well, so I think it's probably smart to just get our fourth guy right there. And I think Reed's a guy that could. I mean, he's live to be the wide receiver one in Green Bay. I don't think he gets a ton of credit for it, but Christian Watson has shown that he can't stay on the field. I mean, Matthew Golden, we can continue that conversation. I mean, he was talk about one of the worst prospects from the first round at the wide receiver position in the past decade. Like, he was truly underwhelming as a producer in college. And I mean, we kind of just saw more of the same his rookie year. So I don't think there's really any reason to expect different. I know there's some narrative coming out of Green Bay that, they got rid of Dobbs because he's the guy. They got rid of Wicks because they think Golden can take everything over. But I mean, we've just never seen it in his career playing football. So I'm hard pressed to believe that. And he's a guy, if I had him in any dynasty leagues, which I don't, I would be looking to sell pretty much just to get out of anything I had of Golden at this point. Just you can still sell him for something,
No, absolutely. Well, it looks like we got sniped on both Kyler and Love.
That's tough.
Can you tab to quarterback really quick? Is there anything here? Do we want it? Let's take Baker and maybe we can backstack. I think we
got blocked out a little bit.
Yeah, in these drafts, it is kind of rough. Like the quarterback waterfall is avalanche is pretty insane. So just getting two guys where we feel solid about it. Pretty much everyone is taking 3 quarterbacks. So like now we at least feel good about these two, and we can kind of take what falls to us. It doesn't feel the greatest to take an unstacked quarterback, but it is in vogue right now, and I think just getting sniped on those two, I don't mind it.
And we've got Jalen McMillan. We probably have is Gainwell still around, or is he someone that goes?
I think he was just on. I think he's still.
He just
went off the board. Okay. So we are at
McMillan or Tez Johnson last round. Get just a Hail Mary stack for Baker for us.
We got Kate Otten at home. Don't worry.
Yeah. I love me some Kate Otten, man. I think he slept on too. He's one of those guys that just like, you could probably, I don't know where he goes on these.
He goes pretty late. He goes in like 16th, 17th round.
Yeah, 196. That's crazy. I mean, he's just, what's the difference between Kate? Would you rather have Kate Otten or Isaiah Likely season long? I might take Kate Otten.
I might take Kate Otten. If you're just giving me points for the season, definitely.
I mean, Kate Otten was one of the guys, like, there's something I do, or at least I did last year for the first time. I was making content on the deltas, or the biggest deltas between expected fantasy points per game and actual fantasy points. Expected fantasy points being like one of PFF's metrics, where it's taking into account like your usage in your offense and whether or not you're connecting with your quarterback, and, taking out the variability of like touchdowns a little bit. And Kate Otten was like the tight end. I think for the last like 9 or 10 games of the year, he was the tight end 4 in expected fantasy points per game, just based on usage. So he's got that role like on lock in Tampa Bay. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless they, draft Kenyon Sadiq or Eli Stowers and muddy the waters a little bit. But I mean, he just seems like a great value.
He's just locked in. Yeah, he's just him and Pat Fryermuth are just like the easiest 17th, 18th round clicks in the history of best ball. It's just like,
big
okay.
Time.
All right. We are back up here in a moment. We have 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, no tight ends yet. I don't mind Omar Cooper.
That's where I was leaning as well. I was thinking that's a good value on a potential first round pick.
Yeah, I think it's just eat your vegetables. Or I don't even know. It's not really vegetables, but it's just like, we know this guy's going first round, right? Like if he were to fall out of the first round at this point, he would be early second round. Just easy game. It's still tied to ADP from before. Like, why is this guy not going higher? It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, he's more like eating just a big bag of candy, because you'll just be either on just the biggest high off of drafting Omar Cooper in this round, or just feeling terrible. There's no
when he's drafted to the Jets, your tummy hurts a little bit. Yeah,
it hurts a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, first round pick, he's gonna get his chances, and hopefully he can prove people wrong.
Shout out to Hartman. He's saying, Golden had a good 6-game run once. Was it even 6 games? I think it was more like 4 games.
6 is a stretch.
Yeah, Chad had 89% of Scatabo in a badge for all last year. The man loves his Scatabo. That's
That's my man. That's good to know.
Yeah, I don't eat your vegetables that's not what you say when you draft a rookie. It's more. I don't mind Goddard for the stack. I think he is being slept on a little bit just because he's it's Dallas Goddard. He's not the sexiest pick. He's not the sexiest player, but getting him definitely feels good in terms of, like, we've seen when either AJ Brown or Devonta Smith is out, obviously the Eagles are going to bring in, like, they just have a kind of mishmash of Hollywood Brown. What are the other guys they brought in? Elijah Moore, like just a bunch of bum ass guys.
Dontavian
like
Wicks.
Dontavian Mix, the GOAT. So I'm assuming they're going to either, they're going to bring someone in, probably draft someone. It could even be like a Chris Bell, similar archetype to an AJ Brown. Obviously not comparing them as, talents, but similar type of player. There's a lot of guys they could take on day 2. So I kind of feel like Devonta Smith, he's not going to score 11 touchdowns again like he did last year, but we've seen him be super consistent from a floor and ceiling perspective. He can soak up targets. Just easy pick in this range, especially getting the news we did today. So we're capitalizing on, the no AJ Brown being there on this team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Likely? I can't get behind it, man. It's hard. Like, I like him, but it's just like, why? This is a pretty high price to pay.
Yeah. I mean, Isaiah Likely's always kind of just been like theoretical fantasy points to me. Like, in theory, he's a guy that would score points, and it just never comes to fruition. I don't know. I really have a hard time buying. He's honestly probably one of my least favorite tight ends just in general right now, given the price. I think I don't know. I would never be selecting Isaiah Likely in the 12th round. Like I said, I think Kate Otten is probably live to outscore him on a year-long basis this year. So I don't know. What do you think about Dalton Kincaid? I think he's another interesting guy with all the question marks around his role. Like, is he ever going to be a guy that stays on the field for more than, 40, 50% of the snaps? Obviously not like a blocker, but potentially a pretty good receiving weapon if he stays on the field. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably not taking him much unless he falls and I have Josh Allen, to be completely honest. Okay, running back here. Is there anybody? Missile?
Missile, James Conner.
I kind of feel like we take one of these guys here, or we just lock up our third. You want to just lock up our third quarterback? Is there someone here? Any of these guys, Cam Ward or Bryce Young?
Yeah, let's take Ward. Let's get Ward locked up. There's some interesting back stacks, I think, actually with Ward as well, with like Ellick, Isle Manor, and Gunnar Helm. Some intriguing guys there too. So, but yeah, like you were saying on Kincaid.
Yeah, I think we still have the like, hey, he was a first round pick tight end, but we're getting kind of some of the injury stuff continuing to come on even onto this offseason currently. Dawson Knox is signed there. Is Dawson Knox like an amazing tight end? No, but is he a solid enough guy where he can block, he can be super consistent, he can still eat up some of those routes and some of that snap share? Absolutely. And I think it's Jackson Hawes is the other tight end who basically like a sixth offensive lineman, but that is, they like to run the ball and he's going to eat up snaps as well. So if they're dealing with Kincaid, yeah, he'll probably have some spike weeks, but it's like when we're comparing him to a Goddard, like Kelsey, even to Mark Andrews, a guy where, we think the offense is going to bounce back. If Lamar's healthy, he could easily score 10 touchdowns, something like that on a good offense. It's just the opportunity cost is pretty high to me. Honestly, Likely and Kincaid, I don't view them that differently from like a talent perspective either. I think they're both just a little bit, it's like shiny object syndrome. It's just like, hey, these guys are fun. They make some big plays, but not a guy I want to be betting on. I think we probably, oh man, these running backs are so gross. We probably should start taking some at some point. I'm good to do, if there's a wide receiver that really stands out to you, I'm good to take one. Otherwise, just eat our vegetables here with.
This is an eat your vegetables ass pick with James Conner. I think get our fourth running back. I don't hate it. I think there's also a chance. I mean, if the Cardinals do take Jeremiah Love third overall, what are the odds we see James Conner ask to get released and find a new home?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. And I while I'm a fan of Tyler Algier as a player, I don't think he's like that good where James Conner would probably get a receiving back role. We've seen him be very solid in that role as a blocker, as, a guy on third downs who can catch dump offs. And yeah, he's getting up there in age, but I still think he could eat up. Like, it wouldn't just be like, hey, it's a 70-30 Tyler Algier and James Conner's in the 30%. Like, I think James Conner would still, make it as close to 50-50 as he possibly could. And so I think, yeah, is he a sexy pick? Absolutely not. But we have Genty, we have Saquon, we have Scatabo. Let's just get some usable weeks at this point out of James Conner. And he still has contingent value as well if Algier were to get hurt. So
when you start a draft with double hero RB and then take someone like Scatabo early-ish in the fifth, and then follow it up with James Conner, are you thinking you'd stop at 5, or you push this to 6? What are your thoughts on like?
Yeah, I mean,
I
think 5 or 6. It kind of just I want to see who falls to us. Let the room kind of let us determine. Like, definitely 5, and then between the last, third tight end, 8th wide receiver, like, I just let the room kind of tell me where the value is, and don't force it one way or the other. I think that's the best way, the most prudent way to play it.
Okay.
Because, like, what's the difference between Isaiah Pacheco and, some of the Emmanuel Wilson and some of these guys that go a few rounds later? It's pretty gross at this point for all of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think? Any of these wide receivers stick out to you?
I mean,
Ridley,
as gross
Debo.
as it sound, I don't mind Debo. I know that sounds very gross. I also don't mind Emmanuel Wilson if we just want to be like, we at least get our 5 there. Are you an Emmanuel Wilson bro though? That's what I need to know.
I know literally. I mean, he's the guy from the Packers, right? I know nothing about Emmanuel Wilson. Like, what has he done for me? Give me the spiel. Give me the pitch.
Well, my co-host on Ballsy, Chris the Candyman, he is a big Emmanuel Wilson bro. But I mean, he was, he's a bigger back. I think he's like 225, 230. He can definitely take on a workload. I do think they're going to just keep adding guys in that Seattle backfield. So it's like, kind of feel like it's a Fugazi, like, RB1, RB2 type thing right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's through the draft or just like guys get cut and they bring in like a rotate, if Tony Pollard, if Jeremiah Love goes to the Titans and he gets cut, like it could be Tony Pollard. It could be so many different guys. It could be Kareem Hunt. Like it literally could be anyone. Right. And I'm like, okay, why am I taking Emmanuel Wilson at this cost? So I think he's a serviceable enough player. Like if he does get, that if he's RB2 or like 1A, 1B, he could be okay. Okay.
Yeah. One guy that stands
I don't
out
mind
to me is Singleton.
For the upside.
I like Nicholas Singleton a lot.
Okay.
I think he's an interesting prospect. And I mean, obviously a lot of variance here depending on the draft capital, because that's highly in question of what NFL teams think of him. Sure. But he definitely grades out really well in my production stuff. And I think actually he's the second highest of any running back in my model, at least regarding their collegiate production, right behind Jeremiah Love in the 2026 class. So if we see him sneak into like round 3, round 4, I mean, that's enough to get him a solid profile. So I think he's a great value in the 180s. As long as we don't see him fall to like, round 5, round 6 UDFA territory, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. He does just strike me as a guy like, yeah, we didn't get the testing numbers like right at the combine and everything. I definitely think he could have rocketed up people's boards. Just like he's a big guy. He was a 5-star recruit, Penn State, like broke Saquon's squat record. Like, it's just like, he's a guy that pops. And because we didn't get that, like, I do think he's just being pushed down a little bit. I think one of these teams could just like fall in love with him and take him, even if it's 4th round, but even up higher than that, I think. And he's the type of guy where it's like, we saw some pretty high highs from him pretty young. And I do think that is important. Like, is it everything? Absolutely not. But like when a guy produces at 18, 19 years old and has some pretty big seasons on, pretty good competition at Penn State, combined with the athletic profile, like those are just two things where it's like, okay, like I don't want to just completely throw that out the window. And just knowing, like I said, that those are things that NFL teams love is big guy, run fast, 5-star recruit. Just people are going to remember him, coaches, all of this. So I think at this cost, if we didn't have the injury stuff with the toe and everything, he could have been easy, like where Mike Washington is going, like 50 picks earlier. Like he could be the same.
Sure.
Like, I think he's probably better than Mike Washington, to be completely honest. I'm not sold on Mike Washington, but
I mean, I think Singleton was a better running back at 18 than Mike Washington was, or maybe is now. I mean, Singleton is legit. Like, yeah, he was as blue chip of a running back prospect as you could get coming out of high school. And what he showed in his rookie or first year in college. I mean, he's a stud. So I think if we get him the opportunity, because that's going to be at the end of the day what it's all about. Like, does a team believe that he can be that guy? If he gets the chance to do it, I think we could be in for it. I think he could be really solid this upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. Okay, we're going to be back up here in a moment.
Yeah, and we are 3, 5, 6, 2 right now. We probably want. Did Gunnar Helm come off the board yet? I feel like that could be a good back.
Yeah, let's see. It looks like I think he just went off.
Yeah, he's
gone. We could go our boy Cade Otton.
Yeah, I don't hate that. 96. What are we at right now? Yeah, 199.
Yeah.
Let's snag Otton. I like that.
Cade Otton, and then we can take some fun rookie receivers here at the end and round out the room.
I dig it.
I think we can go 2 more receivers, 1 more running back, unless it just gets completely wiped out and there's just like no one we even are interested in. But definitely these here are interesting.
Yeah, now we're getting all these rookies like Brazel, Bernard, Surratt. I mean, these are just all the guys that nobody knows what to do with. Nobody knows where they're going to go in the draft. Nobody knows, how they're going to look in their rookie years. But I think there's quite a range of outcomes for these guys. Like we could see some of these guys go early round 2. Like there's been buzz around Surratt at sometimes this offseason. There's been buzz about Brazel even going in the back half of round 1, so it's just a complete crapshoot. I feel like with this range of rookie wide receiver. So definitely there's going to be some big winners from this range. And I couldn't tell you who they're going to be, but Jeremy Bernard, Ted Hurst, Surratt, Zachariah Branch, like these are guys that somebody's going to get really lucky with having a big bag of one of these guys.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's different than I'm probably Surratt, but you could convince me. I think he's the most like highest draft capital right now.
I'm with you. I'm a fan of Surratt's profile.
Yeah, he kept getting better as he went up the different levels. I think he was at JM or somewhere else, and then JMU, and then Indiana his last year. Yeah. Outproduced Omar Cooper. So we have maybe that's not we're betting against each other with those two picks. Obviously, that's not exactly how it works, but yeah, I think in best ball it's hard because I do think best ball and dynasty, like you're saying, like use the best ball market to kind of identify some undervalued guys in the dynasty market. And I think vice versa, you can kind of like, if you're tapped in to rookies and kind of all of that throughout the off season, and just like that can give you an edge as well. So they are synergistic together in terms of just like, you want to be tapped in at all times to everything. And I think if that's the case, you're just going to set yourself up for success in all areas of playing fantasy. But in best ball specifically, it's like, yeah, these are guys that, okay, yeah, they could go 3rd round, 4th round, but they also could go early 2nd round. And the hits matter a lot more than the misses at this point in the draft in round 18. Like if you miss on your round 18 pick, like it truly does not matter. So at least shoot for the upside of these rookies where, hey, it's 5 days from now and they're going 50, 60 picks higher because they were drafted in the 2nd round to a good landing spot where, there's opportunity. So just easy clicks here at this point. And it's also kind of plays into why we're drafting these running backs a little bit earlier, because there is guys like a Cooper, like Casey Concepcion, past pick 100, like these guys where it's like, yeah, like the upside is just there versus some of these receivers where it's like almost a wide receiver dead zone. You're like just taking these guys just to fill a spot. And realistically, what is the difference? We had Sacrilegious on from Legendary Upside on last week, and he's like, I forget what his exact example was, but it's like essentially like, there's a 50-60 pick difference in these players, and like from a median scoring outcome, like they're almost exactly the same. Like Romeo Dobbs versus Calvin Ridley, like
right,
they're both projecting for 7.8 points. Like the machine sees absolutely no difference between those two players. So obviously it's not that simple, but it definitely is a good heuristic to like think through and play through that. So
no, absolutely. And that's a really good point by Sack, that it's like, there's just the range of like wide receiver 40 to wide receiver 70 is probably a delta of like 1.4 points per game, and you'll find a couple guys there that are the big hits, but at the median level, everyone's going to be right around the same. So it is quite interesting in terms of looking at it that way. What do we think here? We got 2 more picks.
Yeah, we got 2 more picks. We got a receiver here. Alec, I know you were talking about him possibly as a stacking partner. Zachariah Branch, we have the stuff that's going on with him. I kind of feel like it's nothing, but could affect his draft capital though. So, it looks like we went Alec. Honestly,
I like Alec because we don't right now. We just had Naked Cam, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
cool. I actually really like Alec. I think he is getting slept on a little bit after that rookie season. So, I mean, they're probably gonna draft somebody to fill out that wide receiver room. I mean, you got Calvin Ridley, Kamari DK, Alec Manor, but I think of those 3, the one with probably the most staying power. I think Calvin Ridley honestly there's a chance he gets cut or wants to leave.
Sure.
But Alec Manor, I mean, he seems like a guy that could definitely take a year or 2 leap. He had some really promising aspects to his prospect profile. He performed early in his rookie season. Like he came out of the gates scoring immediately. And while there was nothing that was like insane about his rookie season, he actually comes out pretty well in my year 2 comps. I didn't make a standalone video on him because it would probably be like 2 minutes long, but he was included in like my wide receiver wrap up video of the last couple of guys from the 2025 class. And he grades out with like a median outcome of 8 to 9 points per game. So solid in this range after 200 for sure.
Let's see. Last pick here. I think we go running back.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is really gross. I don't. Damon Claiborne, probably not a good pick for draft capital. DeMercado, George Halani. I don't think any of these guys just.
Damon Claiborne. Let's just take a shot. Take a shot on one of these rookies to do something for us. You never know.
Yeah, Jacob Gibbs, great follow on X, the Everything app. Was posting some cut ups of Damon Claiborne, and yeah, probably more like a round 5, round 4 guy, but I do think he has a lot of juice, and we see guys out of that range, fall into good situations, trust in the talent. It's round 20, like it's fine.
Totally, yeah.
And then back to your Alec point, I think, yeah, DK, very good punt returner, kick returner, more of a slot guy though. I don't, he can play outside, but more of a slot. And with Wandale there, it's like kind of duplicative with him.
Yeah.
Obviously Calvin Ridley, just you kind of named all the problems with him, and we know he's dealt with injuries. He's a little bit older. So I think, barring them drafting someone, they could draft someone either day 1, day 2, that takes in that role. But I think Alec is just like a natural fit on the outside with a Cam Ward. Even if it's 3 wide receiver sets and it's him and another rookie on the outside, I think he can provide you something here in the 17th, 18th round. So
yeah, absolutely. You want to take us home with this team?
Yeah, so we have Jalen.
Let's go back to this.
We got Jalen Hurts stacked up with Devonta Smith, Goddard, and Saquon. We have Baker stacked up with Cade Otton. We have Cam Ward stacked up with Alec Ayamaner, Ashton Genty at running back. RB1 next year off the board. Saquon bounce back season. Cam Scatterbo, 2nd round pick next year. And then, Dusty vet James Conner, and paired with 2 upside rookies, Singleton and Damon Claiborne. We have old Saquon and we have young Saquon and Nicholas Singleton. So
that's a good way to look at it.
Perfectly balanced. Wide receiver, like I said, Devonta Smith, gonna shoot up. Obviously, time bot contest. We don't necessarily care about that, but probably this time next week, he'll be probably pick 30, something around there in the T Higgins range. So feeling good about that click. Zay Flowers, wide receiver 1 for Lamar Jackson, undervalued Jordan Addison, Jaden Reed, bounce back year. Omar Cooper, 1st round pick. Debo, I mean, I get it. It's gross, but like he's going to sign somewhere. He really wasn't that bad last year. So obviously it could just be the black marble season for him. But I think at pick 176, just if you get 2 games of, 2 15-point games out of him, you're feeling fine. Elijah Surratt and, like I said, Alec Ayamaner, and then Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton, super strong tight end room. Guys are going to be running, all the routes, playing, pretty much 90% of snaps, and getting 3 of those guys, especially 2 stacked up, feels very, very good. So yeah, I really like this team. I feel like draft capital allocation, structure, and player takes, I kind of feel like we hit all the buckets. How are you feeling about this one, Cup?
Yeah, I'm liking it. I think, running back room, super strong, in my opinion, with, I think, Cam Scatterbo, he's a guy to me that I think should be going 15 picks higher, probably. James Conner, I think we just have a couple outs with James Conner, honestly, with the Cardinals. I do think there's a chance he isn't on the Cardinals week 1. I think there's an alternate dimension out there where we see James Conner starting running back for the Seahawks week 1. I mean, that could be pretty sweet. So, there's just a couple outs. He could be somewhere else. He could just have that lead role over a guy like Tyler Algier. And I think we have some good upside with Nicholas Singleton and Damon Claiborne down here at running back as well. Wide receivers, I think, Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, not the most exciting rookies, but I think two that are locked into higher draft capital than people think. Omar Cooper seems like pretty much a lock at this point to go day 1. And Surratt has buzzed to go early day 2. So just feels like, especially in a tournament like this, it feels like really good value to get these guys so late, because if Cooper does end up going round 1, I mean, we saw where Matthew Golden went after the NFL draft last year. I think he got all the way up to like 60 or 70, and that we could definitely see Omar Cooper. I mean, he's a better prospect in my opinion. I think we could see him end up in that range depending on what team he ends up on after Thursday night. So overall, I mean, feels like a solid team. Like you said, the tight ends are looking good. I mean, nothing too sexy down here, but just some guys that are going to be running the routes and scoring points for their teams. I think this one might just win it all.
100K, we'll split it 50-50 and we'll ride off into the sunset and be dynasty virgins, never to see the best ball streets again.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for hopping on, Alex. If you guys aren't already subbed to him, his link is in the chat. It's down below as well. I will be excited to, kind of see you in this tout competition. I think it'll be super fun, and would love to have you on again this summer for a ballsy stream with my co-host Candyman down the line in this hot best ball summer.
Yeah, bro, absolutely, and good luck to you in this competition as well. I mean, who knows at this point what it's gonna entail, but I think because you're entered as well, right? For sure.
Yeah, I entered.
Yeah.
I was like the first day. So I feel like I don't know. I do think my truth serum's take, it wasn't like, I don't think it was necessarily like wrong. Like, I don't think it was just a hot take. Like, I don't think it was like one where it's like, oh yeah, everyone is thinking this. So
did you get roasted for your truth serum?
Pete didn't necessarily roast me, but he kind of just like quote tweeted me, and it wasn't like a direct roast, but I was like, I would push back a little bit. Like, I don't think it was like completely antithetical to like what you were asking. Like, was it like 100% like very, very good example? But I don't think it was like, this is just a clear wrong. So I was thinking like, do I just like re-upload and just, I mean, I don't care. I can do it in, it's in 90 seconds. So
right.
We'll see. I might repost it or just like resubmit it, just to up my chances a little bit. If he personally felt like it wasn't like the strongest take. So yeah.
What was the truth serum?
It was basically like Saquon finishes as like a top 3 running back.
Right. Okay. I do remember seeing that. Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's a 2nd round pick, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, it's not like a crazy take, but I do think it's kind of like, I feel like it's like, hey, like it's not something I would like admit just like openly, like, hey, yeah, right. I think Saquon's going to be, finish as the RB2, RB3 on the year. So we'll see. I have 3 days to resubmit if I feel like it. So we'll see how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling spicy, I might resubmit. So
okay, yeah, no, I mean, I think the line between a good truth serum and just like a hot take is so thin, because I see what you're saying. Like yours, I remember seeing it, and I'm with you. Like, I think that's not a hot take, because it's not something like you're proud to say. You're not like Saquon Barkley, like RB1 overall this year. Like, you're stoked to say that and like have it be like someone said in like the comments on one of Pete's video, I thought was insightful, was like, a hot take you're like proud of, that you want to stamp your name with it. Where a truth serum take is like, you are kind of more ashamed to be associated with it. So it's like, I don't think you would want to be the Saquon guy. Like, it's not like something I'm just like shouting from the rooftops where I'm like, right. yeah, exactly. Like, I want my name associated with Saquon Barkley, like RB
RB2, RB3 overall. Like, I don't know. So is it like the strongest example? I can admit it's not like the perfect one, but is it like not getting the point of it? I don't know. I would push back on that a little.
Yeah,
bit, so.
I'm with you there.
All right. So yeah, you guys can go find his stuff below. Any other closing thoughts for us here before we let you have a good night?
Yeah, no, go check out my YouTube at Cups Analytics. I've been doing year 2 statistical comp videos, little quick hitters on all of these prospects from the 2025 class. One was coming out Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the past, 2 months, I think, at this point. So we got 2 more finishing up this week with 2 more tight ends, but we've done all the running backs, all the wide receivers, and all the big tight ends that you'll care about for the most part have all been posted. And yeah, so go check those out and keep an eye out for some rookie content coming soon after the draft. We'll get all the inputs for the model and get to creating some content for the 2026 class. So that's what I'll have coming over the next couple months. And thanks again for having me on, man. It was awesome. And I'd love to hop on again soon.
Absolutely, man. It was a great time. Great to meet you. And yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward. I've really enjoyed all the videos so far, and we'll be interested to get all your takes on the rookies once we get draft capital, landing spot, all of that stuff. All right, everyone, like the stream, go sub to Alex. Make sure to turn on the notification bell if you haven't already. We'll be going live every Monday for Ballsy with Chris the Candyman once he's back from his vacation. Had Sacrilegious on last week. We'll have a lot of big names on Monday nights. And then, my girlfriend's going to Brazil for 2 weeks. So I will be streaming a lot the next couple of weeks. So be sure to turn on that bell so you don't miss a single stream. Thanks so much, everyone. And we will see you very soon.